Yeah.
My name is Brian Crow. I just have one person in my home. My whole thing is, I understand if they can provide the same service, for less money, that should be all good. But when I brought up before, about their history should follow them, I was told that that was an invasion of privacy. So if somebody gets somebody in their home and they don't know things that they do, but the only reason they're doing that is to keep from paying for the care, and it's so wrong. And to me, I think that would be like a continuity of care, like same way if I go to a different doctor, they gotta know I have diabetes, but their whole thing is, no, you can't tell people that because that's an invasion of his privacy. You can't tell him that he touched somebody, or, you know what I'm saying? And
I totally understand what you're saying.
You're okay with being recorded?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Continuity of care, like a person's behavior, they don't pass that on to other.
You've convinced me. Let's take off from there. Okay.
Yeah, and I just wonder, why don't they have to? Because they're just setting that person up to fail. I mean, if he wants to do it cheaper than me and do as good a job, but at least he should know what is coming with it, And they say, no, you can't, because that's invading. You can't tell his privacy, They say, wait a minute. That's
okay, but let's stop you right there. Okay. It's just wrong.
Well, yeah,
we've heard HIPAA a couple of times already about the managed care organization says we can't disclose this or we can't do that. Well, of course they can. HIPAA is about it going to agencies outside of the fold. And if you're providing care for the person, you are inside the fold. We expect you to share information. Like, you wouldn't tell the doctor, oh, he had a fever? Like, I'm forbidden to tell you he had a fever because of HIPAA. Of course not. You're part of the team that's caring for that person. No problem at all. And yes, we repeatedly hear that providers are being given a little snippet about the person they're receiving. And of course, that's why they look inexpensive. And there's no HIPAA violation to asking, can you get some releases signed so I can have all the records? And you should be able to make a good decision about whether to accept the person. But then there's probably going to be stuff in there that's important for you to be able to serve the person properly. Let's go at this the other way around. If something happened and you knew something and you didn't pass it on to the next person, I think we'd be critical of you. Well, you didn't pass on a medical issue, you didn't pass on something else, that'd be horrible.
I was told it was against the law if I decide not to keep the person I have, it's against the law for me to tell the next provider to pick some up.
Well, what I think you ought to do is, if somebody that's with you is being referred elsewhere, you can certainly say to the guardian, I'm available to talk to the next person down the line, but here's a release that you would sign so I can talk to them. That'd be the safest way to do it.
I do want to make another comment. You had mentioned that you're questioning whether or not you're going to get relief for respite, and whether or not you're going to be able to afford it because now it's your expense, now it's not being paid for outside your budget. And so,
not to interrupt, I am paid very, very poorly for the 2 residents
to start with.
we have. Yeah, to start with.
Yeah, and then to add on, we heard somebody at the earlier session today who said, well, I'm going to have $500 in transportation costs that I never had before.
Yep.
And instead of sending somebody to a day program, I'm just going to keep them at home.
Well, then that's taking away from the resident then.
It takes away, it defeats the purpose of developmental disability services, which is active treatment and normalization, as I said earlier. The other thing that it does is it puts the person at risk. If a provider has to start making decisions about whether or not they're going to get respite, and they go into what's called burnout, which is a basic condition that leads to abuse, then that's a problem that the system is creating. Not the provider, it's the system that pays the provider that's creating that. Now, Rock mentioned that you know, I've got some expertise in developmental disability services. I've worked across the country. In 2 states, in Pennsylvania and in Delaware, I created an abuse prevention curriculum. And that abuse prevention curriculum talks about having honest conversations about what it is that can go wrong if you stress out a provider. You know, it's the top echelon being able to talk to the people who actually you know, are providing the services. So if you can't even talk about how that's going to affect you in being able to get respite, then there's a problem, because that's going to set you up for burnout and potentially for striking out against somebody who you would not otherwise do. And so that's like abuse prevention 101. You don't set situations up like that. So in Delaware and Pennsylvania, I went through a whole training curriculum. And one of the basic parts of it was learning how to talk to each other about these kinds of problems. Why are we having to talk at a forum outside of a meeting with CHP where are they not interested in hearing these things? You know, we'll make it available to them, but somebody has to start saying, this is what's going to happen if you do that. This is how it's going to affect quality.